NerdWallet analyzed pricing data for 1,000 Airbnb listings across the US for 2022 and 2023 to truly understand how much Airbnbs cost and whether they're actually a better deal than just staying in a hotel. Now, for the purpose of this video, I am sticking exclusively to Airbnb. That's because they're the biggest vacation rental service in the US, and they're largely credited with being the first to popularize the idea of regular travelers staying in a regular person's house. That's not to say that these rules don't apply to the other vacation rental services, and they largely have similar pricing structures, but keep in mind, all the data discussed here applies just to Airbnb. So with that, I'm going to tell you when it makes sense to book an Airbnb and when it maybe doesn't. And when it does make sense, I've got some extra tips for you to maximize your savings on that vacation rental. The first fee I want to talk about is cleaning fees. Cleaning fees on Airbnb are a one-time fee, and they are set by the host to cover the cost of well cleaning, like putting away your sheets in the washer dryer. Now, because they're set by the host and not Airbnb, not every Airbnb listing actually has a cleaning fee. In fact, NerdWallet's study found that 15% of Airbnbs don't have a cleaning fee at all. But of the Airbnbs that do have a cleaning fee, we found that the median cleaning fee was $75. Now get this, there were actually some situations where the cleaning fee was actually higher than the nightly rate. If you're only staying in that Airbnb for one night and your cleaning fee is higher than the nightly rate, that can be really confusing, and it can feel like maybe booking that doesn't make any financial sense. That said, because cleaning fees are typically a one-time fee, if you're staying in that Airbnb for an extended period of time, then it might not be as much of a financial burden. Speaking of 3-week stays, I want to dive into the savings that you have when you stay longer. Not only do cleaning fees kind of wash out, but there are other reasons why you might pay less for a longer stay. For starters, there are host multi-day discounts. Many hosts are inclined to give you a discount for staying longer because they want to keep their occupancy high and ensure that you are there staying as long as you possibly can. After all, they would much rather have you check in once and stay for 7 nights rather than have to deal with 7 different guests coming in a different night of every week. That's just, so many more sheets to clean and just a lot of reservations to manage and worry about making sure that you've gotten into the Airbnb okay. Here's some findings from our study. On average, the nightly rate for a 7-night Airbnb stay was $213, which is 32% cheaper than the nightly rate of $314 for a one-night stay. Stay for a month to bring your nightly rate even lower, a 46% discount for committing to 30 days versus just 1. The other reason comes down to taxes. Some cities will charge taxes for shorter stays, but they don't always tax at the same rate or even at all for longer stays. For example, while Dallas charges a 7% hotel occupancy tax, it considers people who stay in one place for 30 days or more to be a permanent resident, upon which the hotel occupancy tax does not apply. In Scottsdale, Arizona, all renters pay a 1.75% privilege tax. However, Airbnb stays of 29 days or fewer are also subject to a 5% transient lodging tax. Airbnbs can also be a go-to for large groups. Not only do you get the convenience of having everyone in your group under the same roof, but there are also cost savings at stake. NerdWallet's study compared the median price of an Airbnb with a max capacity of 2 adults with the median price of an Airbnb with a max capacity of 6 adults. We then broke down the price per head assuming max capacity, and here's what we found. Across the Airbnbs we analyzed, the median price per night per person for a large Airbnb was just $60, while Airbnbs that can only fit 2 adults averaged $125 per person. Note that for this study, we only looked at listings where you get the entire property to yourself. That's as opposed to listings where you might have one room in a shared house. So if you're maybe a solo traveler or a couple, you could be in one room and there are other travelers in the other room. In those cases, it could still be cheaper to have an Airbnb, but just understand that if you are staying in a property where you have the entire place to yourself, it's probably not going to be as cost effective for smaller groups as opposed to larger ones. Now, I've told you about Airbnbs for longer stays, for larger groups, I've talked about taxes, but there are so many other costs that go into your decision of whether it's better to stay in an Airbnb versus a hotel, and a lot of these chalk up to your individual travel style and the nature of your specific trip. One of the big things that people always say about Airbnbs being cheaper is food. Cooking in the Airbnb kitchen is almost always going to save you money versus going out to eat. Just be realistic about yourself. Are you really going to do cooking and cleaning on your vacation when you want to be relaxing, or are you just going to ignore the kitchen and go out to eat anyway? If you are, then maybe you should just stick to the hotel, but if you really can use that kitchen, of course, it'll save you money. There's also laundry, especially if you're going on a longer trip, you might need to do laundry. Some, but not all Airbnbs have laundry in the unit, and if they do, this can be not just a huge cost savings, but also a big time savings so you don't have to track down a laundromat and sit and wait for your laundry to be done. Then there's other things like parking. An Airbnb might offer free parking in the driveway versus if you're staying in the hotel, you might have to pay for parking, and I've stayed at so many hotels where the parking fee is $40 because it's mandatory valet, no self-parking option available. Then you have to factor in other fees that hotels charge that Airbnbs don't. Increasingly common are resort fees, and these can be $30 or $40. That said, many hotels that charge resort fees also come with a lot of other amenities like pools where you might spend the whole day. They might have classes like cooking classes or cultural classes. Your Airbnb is probably not going to provide that. And so if that's something you would otherwise pay for out of pocket when you stay in the Airbnb, maybe just sticking to the hotel could still be a better financial decision even with that resort fee. There are so many costs that go into your decision to book an Airbnb versus a hotel, and it's not always a one-size-fits-all approach. You need to ask about the nature of your trip and what you're interested in getting out of it. But by and large, we've found in our study that large groups are often better off in an Airbnb. Longer stays of a week or more, even a month or more, can be really well suited to Airbnbs. But in all situations, just realize that the ultimate price you pay for your Airbnb is probably going to be a lot higher than what was advertised on that initial search page. I'm Sally French, a travel and credit cards writer for NerdWallet. I'm also a competitive weightlifter. My team and I frequently travel for meets, and we almost always stay in Airbnbs. That's because weightlifters eat a lot of food, so we really make use of that Airbnb kitchen. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe.